Hello everyone. In this video I am going to discuss about the bony orbit. The bony orbit, these are the cavities which are lying on both the sides of the midline. These bony orbits, they are containing the eyeball and the various nerves and vessels and lymphatics which are draining the eyeball. So this bony orbit has four walls: the superior wall, that is the roof, this is the lateral wall, this is medial wall, and this is the inferior wall, or we can say the floor of the bony orbit. First we discuss about the roof of the bony orbit. The roof is formed by this orbital plate of the frontal bone. This is the frontal bone and this is the orbital plate of the frontal bone. Then more posteriorly it is formed by the lesser wing of the sphenoid. So this is the lesser wing of the sphenoid. Here we can see the lesser wing. This lesser wing of the sphenoid is containing a canal. This is known as optic canal. This optic canal gives passage for optic nerve and the ophthalmic artery. So this is the superior boundary, or we can say the roof of the orbit. In this roof we can see in the anterolateral part there is a depression. This is known as the lacrimal fossa for the lodgement of lacrimal gland. Anteromedially, here we have a notch. This notch is known as the trochlear notch. This trochlear notch, or we can say the trochlear spine, is giving attachment to the pulley for the superior oblique muscle of the eyeball. Then we come to the floor of the orbit. This is the inferior wall, or we can say the floor of the orbit. It is made up of the zygomatic bone. This is the zygomatic bone. We can see the suture over here, these two sutures. So this is the zygomatic bone which is forming the floor of the orbit, and this is the orbital surface of maxilla. This is the maxilla and this is the orbital surface of the maxilla. Then more posteriorly it is formed very small process, that is the orbital process of the palatine bone. So these three bones, they are forming the inferior wall, that is the floor of the orbit. In the floor we can see this groove. This groove is known as orbital groove, infraorbital groove. When I insert a probe in this groove, I got a canal. I enter into a canal. This is known as infraorbital canal. So this infraorbital groove leads to infraorbital canal. This infraorbital canal, on the surface, it opens via the infraorbital foramen. So infraorbital groove, canal and foramen, these are three different structures, and these are giving passage for infraorbital nerves and vessels. Then we come to the lateral wall of the orbit. This lateral wall of the orbit is made up of, this is the zygomatic bone. Then posteriorly we have the greater wing of the sphenoid. So these two bones, they are forming the lateral wall of the orbit. On the lateral wall over here we have another tubercle known as Whitnall's tubercle. This Whitnall's tubercle give attachment to lateral palpebral ligament, check ligament of lateral rectus muscle, suspensory ligament of the eyeball, and levator palpebrae superioris muscle. So these four structures, they are attaching over this tubercle. This is known as Whitnall's tubercle. This is lying on the lateral wall of the bony orbit. Then we come to the medial wall. This is the medial wall. It is very thin and weak because of more number of bones which are forming the bony orbit. So this medial wall is made up of this frontal process of the maxilla, Then behind that we have got a very thin papery muscle. This is the lacrimal bone. Then behind that we have got this ethmoid bone. So these three bones, they are forming the medial wall of the bony orbit. This medial wall presents this lacrimal groove. This lacrimal groove is containing the lacrimal sac. This lacrimal groove continues downwards into lacrimal canal, which contains the nasolacrimal duct. This nasolacrimal duct opens into the inferior meatus. As we can see, my probe is opening into the inferior meatus. So this nasolacrimal duct opens into this inferior meatus through this lacrimal canal. Then in its medial wall we can see two foramens are there. This is the anterior ethmoidal foramen and this is the posterior ethmoidal foramen, which is giving passage for the anterior and posterior ethmoidal nerves and vessels. So this is the bony orbit. Now one more important thing which you should know about the bony orbit is that the medial wall of the bony orbits, these are parallel and lie about 2.5 cm apart. They are separated by the nasal cavities. The lateral wall, these are the lateral wall, they slope backwards and medially and meet each other at the right angle. The orbital margins at the base measures about 35 mm in height and 40 mm in width. The orbital index can be calculated by the maximal orbital height divided by the maximal orbital breadth into 100. The eyeball occupies only the anterior 1/3 of the bony cavities and it projects beyond the orbital margins, so that when a sharp needle is introduced from the lateral margins to the bridge of the nose, it will traverse behind the lens. So these are the important things regarding the bony orbit. I hope you understand well. Thanks for watching.